An incredible ride has come to a heartbreaking end. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. This is Todd Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And as always, if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, we have a Patreon called Control the Zone, where we talk Mariners, Seahawks, all that good stuff. For more information, go to patreon.com/control the zone. Link in the description. One of the best seasons in Seattle Mariners history has unfortunately come to a bitter end. Mariners lose to the Blue Jays tonight 4-3 in Game 7 of the ALCS. They were 8 outs away from their first ever trip to the World Series, but a 3-run home run by George Springer made that all disappear in the blink of an eye. We're going to talk about the decision to go to Eduardo Bizardo instead of Andres Munoz there. We're going to talk about some of the other missed opportunities that led to this loss. And, we're just going to vent a little bit. And, if you want to as well, feel free to in the comment section. If you're watching on YouTube, just let it all out. I guess a good place to start here is just the thing that stings the most about this one for me, Colby, is it felt like the Mariners were dictating this game for most of it. They made some big plays. They had some big hits from their stars. They set the tone early on with Julio's double and Naylor drives them in to make it 1-0. Obviously, the Blue Jays struck back, but after that, George Kirby kind of locked in, and the pitching was pretty good in the middle portion of this game. It felt a lot like Game 1 of this series. And obviously there were some missed opportunities, like I mentioned earlier, but still it felt like the Mariners were the better team for the majority of this game. Mm-hmm. And then again, like I said, all that just kind of disappeared in the blink of an eye on one swing of the bat. And, that happens in games like these. We're baseball fans. We've seen a lot of Game 7s. We've seen a lot of high leverage baseball games flip in a moment's time like this. And unfortunately, we're on the receiving end of it this time around. So yeah, that just, it hurts. And, heartbreak is a natural part of being a Seattle sports fan. From having the Sonics ripped away from us in 2008 to throwing it at the 1 yard line in Super Bowl 49 to pretty much the entire Mariners existence. I mean, it's been a lot of heartbreak. This game and that swing from George Springer, that's up there. That's up there. That's gonna live with me for a very long time.
Yeah. It's one of those things that it's tough to bounce back from as a player. It's tough to bounce back from as a fan. Baseball, just in its very nature, is designed to break your heart. You can't run out the clock in baseball. You can't build a lead and then just sit on the ball until you win. You can't just force your best player to come up in the spot where you need him the most and have him get a hit. You have to, work through your lineup, and you have to get that opportunity to get back to that guy. You can make great pitches and they could be hit off the end of the bat and fall into right field for an RBI single, and you lose that way. Like, baseball is designed in many ways to break your heart. And as Mariner fans, we're very well familiar with that feeling. It's just, this one is obviously ratcheted up quite a bit because, it's Game 7 and it's our first Game 7. And you were, you were 8 outs away from going to your first World Series. You needed 8 outs.
Yep.
You had a 2-run lead and you couldn't make it happen. And there were a couple reasons for that. I'm sure we're going to talk about that throughout the show, but to be 8 outs away and to be, that close and to just kind of fail. I mean, it's probably very similar to well, not exactly because but the Blue Jays in game 5, like they outplayed the Mariners for pretty much that entire game. They made one mistake in a key moment. Boom, Mariners win. And they were sitting pretty at 3-2, and then they dropped back-to-back games. Makes yesterday's effort hurt even more that they just didn't really show up for a game 6. And this is what we talk about. In a game 7, anything can happen. There are no safe leads in a game 7. There are no moments in a game 7 that aren't magnified, and a lot of things can break your way. Sometimes you have to make your own luck. The Mariners didn't do that tonight. But the Stars did do their thing. Julio had a good game. I know the last at bat was terrible, but whatever. Julio had a good game. Cal hit a home run. Josh Naylor had an RBI as well. George Kirby was great. Brian Wu was pretty darn good until the end, where we could talk about whether or not they should have put him out there. But you got from Wu and Kirby, you got 6 innings of really good baseball against that lineup. Like the starting pitching, those 2 guys, they did their job for like only the second time in the entire series.
Yeah.
They did their job, and you still came up short, and it's heartbreaking. And it sucks partially because, Bizzardo's been so good all year, and he's been, a guy that you trust a ton. Not the guy to go to in that situation. We'll talk about that, I'm sure. But, it is what it is, and it just stinks. You had opportunities to blow this game open a couple times. You had 3 shots with runners in scoring position, a couple of them against Bieber, who was not sharp tonight, and you couldn't get the big hit, and so there are a lot of reasons why you lost this game, a lot of reasons why you came up short. And there's just going to be a lot of bad memories from what has been otherwise an incredible season. And, if we know one thing about Mariner fans is that they will eventually focus on the positive. You can't be a Mariners fan without being a secret optimist. You have to be somewhat optimistic.
You have to cope. You have to find a way to cope.
Right. And that's through optimism. And so, I'm sure it won't be long before we start seeing the, this is just the start type of talk and all that BS. But, it's okay to hurt right now. And it's okay to not feel like you ever want to watch baseball again right now. And it's okay to just acknowledge this sucks. Like, this absolutely sucks. It hurts. It should hurt. It should sting. You've never been this close. We don't know when you're going to be this close again. We really don't.
Yeah.
So, it just is what it is. The team's going to look a lot different next year. We'll talk about that later this week, I'm sure. But, just tonight, just hanging out with a bunch of Mariner fans. I mean, we're all feeling the same thing. I'm pretty sure. Like, I know eventually we will move on to, well, next year is going to be the year and we'll be back and all that. But, it's never that easy. It's never that easy. And this franchise, they've literally done it once in 48 years. So I don't know. I can't tell you it's this is the start. Maybe it is. It certainly could be. There's a lot of things to be positive about the Mariners going forward. Tonight is not the night to talk about them. Tonight is the night to dissect this game and where it went wrong and how a team that was 8 outs away from going to their first World Series lost after controlling the game for the first 19 outs. It sucks. There's just no way around it. There is no positive spin on tonight, or at least there shouldn't be an attempt to make a positive spin tonight. We can do that all winter long. Tonight, just feel this, just accept that it sucks, accept that there are people and things to blame here, and acknowledge that, accept it, and we can all move on from it, knowing that we are all working from the same reality. But there's no like alternative word. It sucks. This is our state of mind right now. It has to be, maybe some anger from some people, maybe some apathy from some people. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you how to emote, but I do think it's important to all be working from the same plane of reality when we talk about tonight and what this baseball team is going to go through this winter. But again, tonight is about Game 7. What this team's going to go through this winter, we'll tackle that later in the week.
Yeah. This, I'm not gonna lie, and maybe I'm just victim to the moment right now, but I mean, I tweeted this earlier. Like, this hurts more than when the Seahawks threw it at the 1 yard line. Now, is part of that because I live here and I'm going to be constantly reminded of this, and I'm not going to be able to avoid it because I live around people who love the team that just beat you? Probably that probably has something to do with it. You know, every time I go to the Rogers Center now, I'm probably going to be reminded of it. Every time I go to the Rogers Center, they're probably going to play it on the video board like they always played Jose Bautista's home run in the ALDS all those years ago. So yeah, that's my reality now. And all my good memories that I had of that building, you know, with the 8-1 comeback and the wild card, kind of just gone now. So that sucks. So I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got to talk about the decision. You know which one we're talking about in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by FanDuel and Monarch. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Let's be honest. Most of us can't even name all our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where my money's going and how to make it work harder for me. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use promo code LOCKEDONMLB at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, MONARCH.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. So going into this postseason, one of our biggest concerns was Dan Wilson. And now, you know, for the most part, this postseason, I didn't feel like Dan was a problem. Like, there were some decisions that he made that I didn't necessarily agree with, but I never felt like he was a problem over the course of this postseason run. But tonight, while he's not the only reason you lost this game, and he's not the only reason, he's far from it, that you lost the series. He's at the center of the biggest decision of this entire series and of this night. To me, it's not just going with Eduard Bizardo over Andres Munoz. It's also trying to get a third inning out of Brian Wu. I think that's part of this discussion that we need to have. I'll say this. I'm not surprised by the decision to go to Bizardo over Munoz. Not in the slightest. Dan has refused all year long to go to Munoz in non-obvious save situations / extra innings.
Yeah.
But this is the last time you're going to see the top of the Jays order in the biggest moment of this game. You have to go to your best arm. And while Eduard Bizardo has been a dog this year, and he still absolutely is, nothing that happened tonight changes that. No. He is the unsung hero of this 2025 Mariners Ball Club. You have to go to Andres Munoz in this situation, though.
Yep.
You have to. You have to, and then you figure it out later. Like,
you have 8 outs to get, and you are facing their 3 best hitters with the tying run on second base. Not only do you need outs, you need strikeout. More than anything, you need a strikeout. Bizzardo, while he's gotten more strikeouts in recent months, seems to get them mostly against lefties because of that wicked two-seamer, sinker, whatever it is. Munoz is the guy to go to there. If you don't want to use, Brash tonight, which is fine. It looked to me like Brash was running on fumes in his last few outings, and he's coming back from the Tommy John. And so, like, understandably, Brash, probably not the right guy to go to there. You have to go to Munoz. And if you were willing, by the way, to bridge Bizzardo to Munoz in this game, Bizzardo should have started the 7th. To trust Brian Wu, who was pretty good tonight, who has thrown 1 game in the last month, to get more outs when you are clearly willing to go to Bizzardo in this situation, in a higher leverage situation than you're willing to start the inning with Wu for, it tells me that Dan Wilson didn't even consider having Munoz go 2 innings tonight. He was trying to get Munoz to only pitch the 9th, and you cannot do that. You have to manage the game in front of you, not the one you want to manage. That is your best reliever. The game is on the line right now. The Blue Jays' 2 hottest hitters are going to hit in the middle of you needing these 8 outs to go to the World Series. And you go to a guy who, again, while he's been very good, and nothing about tonight changes that, he is the unsung hero, like Ty said, all acknowledged, right? He has pitched seemingly every single game of these playoffs. Munoz has pitched once in a week. Like, you barely use Munoz in this series. He is well rested. He is your best reliever. He is your best shot at a strikeout in that situation. He is the best matchup to face George Springer because of the slider. That's his best pitch, not a two-seamer, which runs into Springer, a slider that runs away from Springer. There is no justification whatsoever to not go to Munoz there. The reason he didn't is because Munoz wasn't warming up at the start of the inning. Why wouldn't Munoz be warming up at the start of the inning when you know that if 2 guys get on, I'm going to the top of the order? And by the way, it's a 2-run ball game. If 2 guys get on, the winning run or the go-ahead run is coming to the plate in this inning, and it's going to be George Springer or it's going to be Lucas. Like, that is the scenario, and you didn't even have him warming up. So the absolute ineptitude of Dan Wilson tonight was the biggest roadblock to you going to the World Series. We said this way back before the Detroit series. What are you most concerned about for the Mariners as they enter these playoffs? What is your biggest obstacle? What is your gravest concern? Dan Wilson has always been the answer. And for the most part, he's been okay in this playoff run. Tonight, he choked. He did not think ahead. He didn't have a good gut call. He didn't stick to his guns. He tried to get cute with Wu to try and get another out or 2, because again, he was not willing. What this tells me, the evidence would suggest he was not willing to ask Munoz to go 2 outs or 2 innings. Sorry.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, why wouldn't Munoz be hot and ready to go for when the front of the order comes up? Whenever it happens, like it might happen in the 7th, he should be ready to go. It might not have minutes for the top of the 8th to go, to happen. Who cares? He's ready to go then. So just at every single level of this thing, Dan Wilson screwed up. At every level, every decision he could have made in the 7th inning, he screwed up. And keep in mind, I think this is important. We've pointed it out before. The Mariners interviewed 0 candidates before Dan Wilson, the full-time managerial job, a team that has World Series aspirations. They handed it to a guy with 0 experience, talking to 0 people along the way. and they just said, you're the decision maker. We're going to trust you. And for the last 6 months, we have been telling everybody who will listen, Dan Wilson is tragically bad at this. He might get better, but right now he is ill-equipped to manage a team with World Series aspirations. And guess what? Well, he's so good with the players. Well, the team loves him. Well, he got you to this situation. A lot of good that did. A, he didn't get you here. The immense talent got you here. But B, now he's the reason you're not going on to the World Series. Or at least he's the biggest reason you're not advancing to the World Series.
He's one of the reasons. There's some other reasons we'll get into in a bit.
We're not even talking about the decision to bunt against a struggling Shane Bieber.
Yeah,
that led to 0 runs.
There's that. I mean, look.
There's even a question about whether or not you should have taken Kirby out after the 4th. I'm not going to get him on that one. I'm okay with that. I understand that one.
Yeah.
But the mismatch, we are 8 freaking outs away from going to the World Series. And Andres Munoz did not pitch with a lead in this game.
Yeah.
Not because, you lost the lead in the 4th inning. It's because you didn't have the foresight to look ahead and be like, hey, we just walked this guy. If one more player reaches base, we will face George Springer.
Well, the worst part of this is that Munoz did come into this game right after.
Yeah, after it was over.
That's the worst. That's the worst part about this. Mm-hmm. And look, okay. If Munoz comes in, does that automatically mean you're going to get out of that situation? Absolutely not. He didn't even look particularly good when he came into this game. He was able to get out of it unscathed, but he didn't look particularly good. The problem is I can live with you going to Munoz in that situation and the same result happens. I can't live with the fact that you didn't go to your best guy in that moment. And that happened. I can't. I'm sorry. I can't. So while Dan isn't the only reason that you're not going to the World Series tonight, he didn't put his guys in the best position to succeed tonight, to go to the World Series tonight. That's what I can't live with. So look, in the end, a big reason for this is the bottom of your lineup sucked this whole postseason run, but especially in this series. Your rotation was bad in this series, and your rotation was incredibly disappointing. And obviously, a lot of guys were dealing with injuries over the course of the year, but your rotation was incredibly disappointing over the course of this season. So there's that, your bullpen, the front office should have added more to the bullpen. They tried, but their pivot move to Caleb Ferguson was not it. There are so many other things that we can talk about here, right? That also directly contribute to this moment and just how this whole series played out. Not just this particular moment, because again, you were up 2-0 in this series, right? Yep. Frankly, you shouldn't have been in this situation. Frankly, you shouldn't have been playing in a game 7, but you did. You did have to play in a game 7. And in this particular moment, Dan Wilson did not put his guys in the best position to succeed.
No.
In the most critical moment of this entire game. No. I can't accept that. And while Dan is clearly a good manager for, from the clubhouse perspective and for culture building and all that stuff, while he checks off all of those boxes, which you can argue are the most important boxes to check off as a manager, he is a bad in-game manager. We have been talking about this all year long, and this is what ultimately scared me the most going into this postseason. And while it wasn't really a problem for this, for most of this run, it killed you in the most critical moment tonight.
It became a problem.
Well, we're going to wrap up with some final thoughts. Want to talk a little bit more about the bottom of the lineup versus the Blue Jays bottom of the lineup. Go over that in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is once again brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person. But actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees,
Ugh, it takes all the fun out of it. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you get. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today.
And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. So, over the course of the season, the bottom of the Mariners lineup has come through in some pretty big ways. I mean, I think about earlier on this year when, guys like Miles Mastrobuoni and Leo Rivas and, guys like that were actually like chipping in a little bit and actually helping you win games. And then a little later on in the year, the bottom of your lineup was cooking again. And, for a while there, like Dom Canzone. Yeah. Dom Canzone, was he was a revelation this year during the regular season. Definitely not in the postseason, during the regular season. But that just all kind of went away here in the playoffs. And it wasn't just Canzone. He was a big part of it, but it wasn't just him. Here's a stat from Foolish Baseball. Mariners 7 through 9 hitters in this series /113, 207, 155. They scored 2 runs. Blue Jays 7 through 9 hitters /284, 333, 500 with 12 runs scored. That's your ball game right there. Mm-hmm. Frankly, like if we're talking about, like, obviously, we talked a lot about Dan Wilson and the decision tonight, but if we're talking about the series as a whole, it starts with that. And it starts with this rotation outside of Bryce Miller and George Kirby tonight being just straight up non-competitive.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, when we talk on the, macular level, I don't know if that's a word, the macro size of like why the Mariners fell short once again, even though they got as farther than they've ever gone before, why did they once again fail at the ultimate goal, which is to go to and win the World Series? Why did that happen? We will talk about all of that because it's important, and in particular, the starting rotation, which this whole thing was built around. The whole premise was get this rotation into the playoffs and see what they can do. They weren't good. They were okay in the Detroit series, pretty good for the most part in the Detroit series. They were garbage. Like, you bookended this series with your best starts. Kirby tonight, Bryce Miller in game 1. Luis in game 5. They got him out pretty early.
No, it was Bryce in game 5.
Sorry. Yeah, Bryce in game 5. They got him out pretty early. But he was fine. So you just one of those things where you kind of look at it and you say, look, tonight it's about Dan Wilson. On the whole, why did you fall short again? You're starting pitching. If you're starting pitching just pitched like they did last year, we would be on our 3rd day of previewing the Dodgers-Mariners World Series. That's just the reality. You got nothing from Logan Gilbert this series. You got nothing from Luis Castillo this series. You got one good, decent start out of George Kirby. Not much length, but that's by design. So one good start out of Kirby, one disastrous start out of Kirby. And that's it. Like, you had 2 good starts in this series. Really, if you want to be like really picky about it, you got 1 good start in this series, and that was game 1. And your bullpen had to cover a ton of innings. Once again, and we've talked about this is not a deep bullpen. And when you have to run Bizzardo out there, pretty much, the Mariners played, 12 playoff games? I think Bizzardo pitched in 9 of them. Like, that's insane. Like, your starters have to go deep into ball games. We talked about this all year with Logan Gilbert, how this is a problem. People need to be paying attention to this. Stop staring at the strikeouts. Stop staring at the swing and miss. He's only going 5 innings to start, and he's struggling to do that sometimes. Like, we need to talk about this. This needs to be a thing. And he's getting whiffs, so I think he's going to be fine. And whoops, Here we are. I really hope, and this is going to sound weird, I really hope we hear about some small surgeries for these guys this winter. We know Bryce is going to have the procedure to clean out his elbow. I'm hoping Logan has something small that they need to do as well, because what we saw, like, if we were doing a least valuable player in the 7-game series, it is Logan Gilbert with a bullet. And that's factoring in nothing from Dom Canzone and nothing from Victor Robles. That's fine. I don't expect those guys to do a ton. I expect my staff ace to not get knocked around the ballpark every time he goes out there. So yeah, I think Logan was a disaster this year. I think this was his worst year by far. And I know a lot of people will jump on the strikeouts, the FIP, the blah, blah, blah. He had a great WAR, even though he only threw 120 innings, blah, whatever. That's not what I'm paying Logan Gilbert for. That's not what I need Logan Gilbert to be. I don't need Logan Gilbert to be a guy who gets 230 strikeouts and 200 innings. I need Logan Gilbert to be a guy who goes 200 innings with a low 3, high 2 ERA and doesn't walk guys and is competitive and doesn't have to throw 25 pitches to get through every single inning. And he didn't get that all year. He certainly didn't get in the playoffs. And yeah, I think it's only fair to throw the caveat on there. What if Brian Wu didn't get hurt when he did?
Sure. Yeah.
Could that have changed the series? Yeah, it might have. It might have.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to say it wouldn't. Yeah. But again, your starting pitching overall this year was a major disappointment. And in the ALCS, it is the biggest reason why you lost.
I'm just going to say this now. You and I have kind of like jokingly talked about this. You know where I'm going. Are you about to drop the mic
on this? Are we going to end it on this, Ty?
No. There's something else that I want to end on.
Oh, maybe we should save it then, because this feels like a drop the mic moment.
No. This offseason, we're going to talk about a lot of guys.
Here we go.
We're gonna do our offseason plan. And over the years we've jokingly talked about like, oh yeah, they should go sign Juan Soto, even though there was no chance of them doing that. They should go sign Ohtani. Yeah, exactly. This year, if Tarek Skubal is legitimately available, if the Tigers are going to screw around and not actually pay him, the Mariners should absolutely do whatever they can to acquire Tarek Skubal this offseason. I'm not joking.
I knew it was coming.
I'm not joking. The Mariners should go after Tarek Skubal this offseason, assuming that he's available. He shouldn't be. The Detroit Tigers should just pay him. Let me make that very clear.
Yes. And last we heard, their offer was 4 years, $100 million for the best pitcher on the planet, or second best pitcher on the planet.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like they're serious, does it?
But if they're going to screw around, the Mariners have the pieces to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. One of the only teams that do.
And if any team that's looking to take the next step could use Tarek Skubal, it's absolutely the Seattle Mariners. Especially after what we just saw over the course of this postseason.
Sure.
So there you go.
That's the hill Ty's going to die on this winter.
Cat's out of the bag now. Sure. That's what I've been thinking about for the last couple of weeks. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll have time to get sentimental about this team and all that. But I want to take a couple of minutes to at least get sentimental about just the ride we've gone on over the course of this year with you guys specifically. And I just want to say thank you to you guys. We have continued to grow this channel and just continue to grow this podcast in general in a huge way. And obviously a big reason for that, and a big thanks is to the Mariners, obviously, for playing great ball and for giving us, a really nice draft to talk about and a great trade deadline to talk about. And, Cal Raleigh for having a historic season, all that. The first division title in 24 years, getting the closest they've ever gotten to the World Series, all that stuff, right? But just thank you guys so much. It has been incredibly humbling, especially over the last few weeks, to see how many of you have tuned into our show. We have seen view counts that we haven't even gotten close to in the past. And it's been amazing to see. And I hope you guys stick around here. We're not going anywhere. If you're new here, that's not how this works. Like we're continuing to do podcasts. Like just because the season ended doesn't mean that we're done. So
the real season starts tomorrow.
Yeah,
the off season is the real season.
This is where we really make our money here. Is with the off season, and Colby and I, if you're not super familiar with us and our history, like Colby and I really like connected because we both love the off season and transactions and all that stuff. Like we're absolute nerds for that stuff. So we're going to give you guys tons of great off season content this winter. So I hope you guys stick around for that. But again, just thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for coming along on this ride with us, for being a part of this thing. And let's have a great off season. But it's starting a little bit sooner than I was hoping it would. But hey, I mean it's better than most years though.
Yeah. But no, on a serious note, obviously it's been an awesome ride. And I wish it was still going. I mean, we're still doing shows, absolutely. And we're hoping to carry some of this momentum, but we know naturally that a lot of you guys are going to phase out, for
seeing those views nosedive is that's going to hurt.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's going to take a little while for us to like normalize that again, but, yeah, it's been an awesome ride. It really has. Some of the biggest hits in Mariners history have happened. Some of the biggest outs in Mariners history have been recorded just in the last month alone. I mean, we had the greatest regular season series in Mariners history. We had, we had so many home runs, and we've had division titles, and we've had, despite how terribly he played, Leo Rivas is author of one of the biggest hits in franchise history. Eugenio Suarez, this was his swan song as a Seattle Mariner. Heck of a way to go out with his game 5 today, whatever. But it really was just an incredible run with a lot of great highlights that, eventually will make this sting a little less going forward. But for now, it sucks. It feels like, you left something unfinished. And there's plenty of reasons why, and there's plenty of things to talk about as we go forward. But yeah, thanks for joining us. Thanks for going on the ride with us. Thanks for hopping on late. If you did, we wish we were still doing shows talking about this team going after their first World Series title. It just wasn't meant to be, but that doesn't mean we're going anywhere. That doesn't mean we're going to be, less attentive. It doesn't mean we're going to be doing more boring shows. And it also doesn't mean that we're not going to stay here and keep poking the Seattle Mariners ownership with a stick until they actually do something, because that's how I show my love. I'm not going to sit here and let you just get away with, oh, this is good enough, right? No, it is not. We will sit here. We will poke you with a stick. We will scream into the void until
this is absolutely the off season to spend money, by the way. Let's make that very clear.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And we will keep poking those guys with a stick. Even if they think we don't know ball, we will continue to poke them with a stick. We will use our platform to demand that this team spend money, that demand that this team puts a product out on the field that the fans will want to watch. And what do you know? Look at what happened when you actually invested in the ball club a little bit in July. Now do it over the winter. Have 40,000 people on a Tuesday night in May. You can do it. This franchise has done it before. You can do it now. You've never had this much momentum. Do not drop the ball like you did in the winter of 2022. You cannot do it again. And we're going to keep poking these guys with a stick. We're going to keep calling them out for this until they get it right. Yeah. We're not going anywhere. You're not going to silence us. You're not going to buy us off with a game 7 of the ALCS appearance. No. World Series or shut up. That's the goal. Yeah. And we're going to keep poking these guys with a stick until we get it. And that's what you can expect this winter.
So on that note, that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Titan Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Titan Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. We're also on Blue Sky. You can follow me at TDG, Colby at MLB Colby, and the show at Locked On Mariners. You can also find us on Instagram at Locked On Mariners. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace. Go M's forever.